Welcome to Squaring the Strange, the podcast that examines all manner of the mysterious and the mundane through a critical lens. So, let's square the strange.
Welcome back to Squaring the Strange. Well, welcome video people, audio people won't hear this. We have a special guest, one of the godfathers of the modern skeptical movement and podcasting, Brian Dunning.
Yay.
Of Skeptoid.com.
Woo!
And we are going to talk about a little bit of rock and roll in Death Valley.
Wow. I knew I shouldn't let you do that intro.
I cannot resist it.
You asked me if I was going to do the intro. It's like, you know what? You do it, and now I already regret it. But go ahead.
Yes, I'm not going to avoid the puns. They come into my head. They're going to go out my mouth. So, Ben, you've been there with Brian. Why don't you kind of, start off and tell us about your adventure with the Stones and when you first heard about them and what they are.
With the Stones. I first heard the Stones in Toronto. It was...
Now it's your turn to make the bad puns, and I'm not allowed to say anything.
It was SARS Fest, Rush, Flaming Lips, AC/DC. But more importantly, we're talking about the mysteriously moving Stones in Death Valley and Racetrack Playa. And I had heard this... I had heard about them sort of years ago, and it was one of those things where it was interesting to me, but I didn't honestly didn't care enough about it to go to Death Valley. And I recognized that whatever was moving the Stones was going to be something that was more than I could bite off and chew. This was not a like, oh, caught you in the act. There were processes going on here. I didn't think it was aliens, but I also didn't think it was anything beyond that. So that's when I first heard about it. So basically the idea is that there are these rocks that move. And of course, you think Sisyphus, you think, depending on how far back you go, of course. But these weren't, I've looked at, giant balls in Costa Rica, for example, the Mayan balls. So I'm familiar with lots of these things, but these in particular were moving apparently without any real cause. And as usual, there was aliens, there was magnetic ley lines, whatever the hell. But then as the story went on, eventually I heard some murmurs that some people were actually looking into it, which of course I was glad because I didn't have the time or ability to do. And then I found out, and I honestly didn't know this until fairly recently, that Brian was in the middle of all this. So I'm like, we got to have him on there. So that's with that rambling preamble, Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. It's lots of fun to be back. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys.
When did you first hear about these sailing stones of Death Valley?
So it was my first year in film school. 83 probably.
Holy moly.
They were showing trailers that were from previous film students. And one of them was for this movie called Devil's Stone, which was, I guess, a documentary short, but it never actually got made. Apparently, I learned later, whoever made it only made that trailer, Devil's Stone. And it was, a picture of the rock with this dry trail that the trail had been made when the mud was wet, and then the mud dried up and crinkled with the trail still visible. And I'm like, how is that at all possible? And I just go through the brain and I just could not think of it. So it obsessed and consumed me ever since then.
I don't know if you have been told this as a child, but when it is raining and thundering, you're hearing the sound of the angels bowling. And now we found out where they're doing it. They're clearly bowling with these stones in Death Valley.
I wish I'd known that before, because then I would not have wasted all that time trying to figure it out.
I could have saved you all that time. But I mean, that actually leads into one of the things we wanted to ask, which is this is a mystery that went on for a long time.
Yeah.
People didn't catch these stones moving. It wasn't something that, for various reasons, it wasn't something that people could really zero in on, and scientists couldn't quite observe what was happening. So, what were the alternate explanations that, what were the things people came up with to explain this mysterious stone behavior?
I mean, when I first started going there, the first time I ever went there, um, they've got an interpretive sign, a little Park Service interpretive sign there at the little parking area for the racetrack, and it would have what it said. Um, what it what it said was the leading explanation at the time, and it was, scientists think that strong winds push the rocks across the slippery mud when it gets wet. Um, who has ever seen wind pushing a rock sliding along the ground?
I have not.
That's not a thing.
Not even the little ones, yeah.
So that sign actually has gone through at least 3 revisions that I have seen in all my years going there. That was the first time I saw it. It just said that was the only remote clue anyone had. And now it's fairly correct and complete. And then, some sort of an interim version that I saw once at sometime in the middle there. So, yeah, the understanding of what happens is fairly recent. And, I'm not claiming to have been the first to have videotaped it, but I videotaped it in 2002, and I made a little video, and I explained what was happening. And I did this in 2002 and posted it to YouTube somewhere. So, I mean, I can claim to have known the solution since then.
Well, but before we get into that, why don't you set the stage here, right? Because you and I were in Death Valley. You've been there many, many times.
Yes.
As has your son Andrew, and I mean that's your adventures and that thing. But of course, a lot of people haven't been there. So, sort of give people a sense of how far away it is. I know because I was on rugged roads that my spine is still tingling from. Talk us through some of the logistical challenges of investigating this.
Yeah. So, I mean, Death Valley is big. The leading cause of death is not people dying of heat stroke. It's people falling asleep at the wheel and flying off the road. Single car accidents are the leading cause of death. And people still die there every year. It's big, and driving distances are long. And if you want to go to the racetrack, you've got to drive for a couple of hours at least, and then you turn on to, I think it's about 25, 26 miles of really rough gravel road. It says 22 miles, but that only gets you as far as the next junction, which is that Tea Kettle Junction. And then it's still several miles beyond that before you get to the racetrack. So it is that road. I mean, they'll go by with a scraper about once every year or two. And so it's usually in a state of disrepair. When I go there, I'm in our Jeep, which got, big low pressure 35-inch tires, aired way down, and we're going at about 45, 50 miles an hour, at which point you no longer have the washboard. You're cruising over the top of it. So it's a very smooth ride, but that's also extremely dangerous to drive that fast on a loose, unpaved road. Don't ever do that. Do as I say, not as I do. But I mean, well, you were there with the Skeptoid trip in 2024. When you're in just a regular van with street tires, high pressure inflated street tires, trying to go even 25, 30, it is just absolutely brutal.
It is.
So it is hard to get to. If you're not well equipped, it is hard to get to.
And even just getting there again, so again, you have these stones that are apparently moving, and you have to wonder, okay, well, if it's a hoax, who the hell is who is doing this, right? Is someone like driving out there, on a regular basis? I mean, it doesn't make any sense that it's some sort of intentional thing, just because logistically, it just, when you sort of go through and just the heat and anyway, so continue about that.
Well, the hoaxes. Hoaxing was one of the theories. I want to hear about all the folklore weird stuff, because since this was a mystery for so long, there were a lot of kooky theories about how the stones were being pushed across the desert and by whom or what.
Yeah, and most of them were not really worthy of much consideration. They were suggested by New Age people coming up with all kinds of, energy related terms. They were, magnetism, magnetic vortex, energy vortex, meaningless terms. And of course, yeah, there's always people saying, "Oh, aliens must do it because they have nothing better to do than this."
Well, they have to take a break from from excising cow tongues and anuses. So they when you've collected your quota of cow anuses, you might as well go move some rocks in Death Valley, right?
But what I thought was interesting, I mean, the silly explanations are not the interesting ones. What are the interesting ones are the science-based ones, where people are genuinely trying to come up with something that's real that could explain this. And honestly, that wind's pushing the rocks across the mud when it gets slippery and wet. That was as close as it got. When you look at it from a science perspective, okay, what real forces exist out there that could move these rocks around and leave these trails 100 yards long that might zigzag and change direction, sometimes even turn around and come back on themselves? What could make a rock do that? And really, nobody had a remote clue, not even a plausible guess.
See, I would have gone right to sentient ants. Did anybody come up with spiders or ants cooperating?
I mean, the ants certainly could lift one. I mean, they're pretty strong from what I've read on the internet.
But so you took it upon yourself to actually catch these in action. So what? Tell us about that.
Yeah, the first time I went out there was in 2002, and I was just with two friends, and it was not with any expectation of finding out how it happened. I just wanted to see the place because I'd heard about it and really wanted to see these rocks. And so we drove out there, and we didn't know anything about laws or rules in the desert and everything. So we camped there by the side of it. You're not allowed to do. We didn't know that. And then in the morning, super early in the morning, we got up and walked out there. And it was the fact that we didn't know you're not allowed to camp there and were able to be there super early in the morning that allowed us to just random chance catch it in action and see what was happening.
Wow.
Remember Back to the Future? Remember the video camera, that red JVC video camera, and Doc Brown goes, "Oh, portable television studio." So we had that exact same camera. So it's like, super old, super low resolution, SD. And we walked out there, and to our surprise, there's this big lake or a giant puddle, a mile and a half across, that was just cruising across the lake bed, moving at about walking speed or so, and it was just being pushed by the wind. The wind was just pushing the water, and we could see further out that there was ice on the water. That's not visible in the video that I took, just because the low resolution of the camera, and that ice is pretty far away. It's probably, I don't know, an eighth or a quarter of a mile away from where I was standing before the ice started. And when we stood still, we could watch the ice moving, and we could see black dots on it that were rocks sticking up through it that the ice had frozen around, were moving along with the ice. The ice just has enough horsepower when it's being pushed by the wind to drag rocks along with it. So we're there in person, and we get this private show of, "Hey, look, here's how it happens. And you can watch it happening right now." And we filmed it with our video camera, except you just couldn't see enough detail. So I put the video up on YouTube, and I narrated what was happening, what you couldn't see. But it was really very, very cool. And that was, several years before I started working as a science writer. So I didn't know anything yet about oh, do you write a paper? Do you announce this? What do you do with this information?
But hold on, did it occur to you that you, and I don't mean to be too dramatic here, but you literally could have been the very first person to ever see that?
As far as I was able to learn, I mean, by no means would I ever argue that I was the first to see that. There's no doubt that people in the 1800s who were mining there saw that and just maybe never thought it was remarkable enough to report, or never cared enough to walk out there and see the mud trails, and so they didn't know there was anything going on.
Right.
But I think I was probably the first to return with evidence that I made public, at least as far as the video goes.
That is very cool, sir.
Now, the mechanism of what you're describing there, where the rocks get kind of frozen in a big sheet of ice, and when the whole sheet of ice moves, it moves the rocks as well. That is kind of like the ice collar theory. You just have to think of the ice collar as really big.
Yeah, well, the ice collar theory. That was really, really dumb. So in that one, instead of being embedded in a sheet of ice,
Mm-hmm.
the rocks had the water that was frozen right around them would freeze.
Like a little life preserver.
Yeah, like a little life ring around the rock. And they said, oh, well, since ice is lighter weight than water, it'll make the rock float. This is another thing that has never been observed in nature. And so that theory was these rocks are just kind of free, floating in the water with their little ice life preservers, and they would touch along the surface of the mud beneath them. So that was just as dumb. But that's a great example of another one of the science-based theories that just did not make it.
Well, hold on here. So one thing I don't think we really touched on is the variety and the size of the rocks. Now I know because I heard you talk and we were there, but we're not just talking marble-sized rocks, but we're also not talking giant boulders. So what were the characteristics of the rocks we're talking about?
So these rocks are andesite, which is not as heavy as basalt. It's a lighter weight volcanic rock, but not super light, like about this big or so. Some of the ones that you see out on the playa are probably this big by, they're probably. I mean, I've never tried to move one. That I wouldn't want to try and do that, but they're probably 100 pounds, 150 pounds, maybe.
So these are like millstone sized stones. They're not something that teenagers would move around for fun.
Yes, although the funny thing is, if you go there today and you park there in the parking lot and you walk out there, the first rocks you're going to come upon are good sized, and they're not the right kind of rock. They were placed there by the Park Service to keep people from going further and disrupting the real rocks.
Okay.
They're shill rocks.
They're shill rocks, literally shill rocks. Yes. So if you do go there, don't stop at the close ones. Walk out there for at least half hour, 45 minutes, and get to the far side of the playa, and that's where you'll find the real ones.
Giving the public pointers on how to get past the park rangers.
If you want to see the real ones that really move, and not the ones, I mean, the ones the park rangers place would move as well, but I've never really seen the lake that far to the northwest, I guess that would be.
I want to think I have an understanding of the way glaciers carved out huge swaths of land in the Ice Age. Is this kind of like a mini version of that, or totally different? Maybe your son Andrew might know.
He definitely would know. My son is a geologist, and he's been a geologist for the state of Oregon, and he's been obsessed with Death Valley since he was an infant. And he's literally, genuinely one of the world's leading experts on the geology of Death Valley. So he'd be the one to ask that question to. But I don't know how that particular valley was formed. Most of Death Valley is these sort of these parallel ridges where the ground went like this. It tilted and separated and left a valley in the middle, and that valley would fill with sediment, and that's like Badwater Basin, that whole big thing that goes on forever.
I'm not saying that Death Valley was originally carved by a glacier. I'm just saying that that's almost like seeing it on a small scale, because actual glaciers take rocks and everything else, and this is just a small sheet of ice. I'm going, yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. How they might scrape a rock along the ground. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The power of ice and gravity and wind moving it along.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very fair comparison. Yes, I would say conceptually that is similar.
Now, you had this on Skeptoid, episode 21, which I did not even realize your episodes went back that far.
Episode 21, was that 2006 or 2007?
That was 2007.
Wow.
You had a reason to touch on it again in 2014. Do you want to tell us what happened in 2014?
Yeah. So I finally came around to the idea that, you know what, I really should publish this. And I talked to some friends, and at that time I'd never published a scientific paper in a journal before. And I talked to some friends I'd met through Skeptoid that had, and they told me how easy it was, at least initially. So I said, okay, I'm going to go collect the evidence. So to collect the evidence, the first thing you need is a research permit from Death Valley. So I went through that whole process. I got the research permit. And then I needed a weather station. Now there's sort of cell phone connection at the racetrack now. There wasn't then.
Mhm.
There was nothing at all, no connection at all back then. So I sort of online designed a weather station with a camera pointing down at the playa. This would be mounted up on the hillside above the playa. So the camera would look down at the playa. It had an anemometer to collect the wind speed. It had a thermometer to collect the temperature data. What else I have? I had wind speed, visual, temperature. Maybe that's it. And then it had a cell phone, and it was all a little cell phone module so that it could transmit all of this data. And then there's a little Arduino-based computer that would take in all this data, and every hour or whenever it would send me an email with all the latest weather. And at the time, I lived about 6 hours door to door from my house to the playa. So I was able to race out there in very short order if the conditions were ever right. And I would go out there I had a super big zoom lens and everything. And, you know, you still have to be, even though you have the research permit, you have to be legal. You can't go out on the playa in your boots when it's muddy. So you're not ever going to get close to film the ice moving these rocks, because that's out in the middle of the lake. So I had everything ready to go. I was just about to launch the crowdfunding campaign to pay for this whole big rig. And as soon as I was about to launch it, like literally the same day, I got an email from, Live Science or something saying, hey, the mystery has finally been solved. And here's some guys, 3 or 4 guys who had been, for the last couple of years, had a nearly identical weather station positioned almost exactly the same place I was going to put mine. And they had gone out there several times and collected data. They also did some additional things like GPS trackers on the rocks, which I didn't think was necessary. But they collected enough data and they published it.
Yeah, the Norris cousins, I believe the 2 of the gentlemen were cousins.
Yeah, so I made an episode of the podcast. Hey, congratulations, you beat me fair and square. It's just a matter of being too slow. You snooze, you lose.
Well, it had been a mystery for 70 years, to be fair.
I mean, I don't know if it had ever been a mystery among people who'd ever been there. It's a mystery among people who see pictures.
In Death Valley, there aren't that many people there. There's no burgeoning community of people who've lived there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there was lots of miners there for a long time, and they all would have seen it in every conditions. There's people like me who are just desert rats who went out there all the time because we loved it. We'd seen it in every condition. So it was a mystery among the general public, and it was a mystery among the, official documentation or whatever. There was no journal articles explaining it. There was It was still unexplained on the interpretive signs and in the Park Service's official, visitor center, museum, and all that.
Now, do you want to tell us a little bit about what they did that maybe you didn't think of, or is there anything that surprised you?
Fuck those guys.
No, they did everything. Yeah, I was on top of it as much as they were, and I expect the reason is because, like me, they had probably been out there themselves before and knew what was going on.
Did you have rocks with GPS embedded in them?
No, I did not do that.
I thought that was clever. These guys put out dummy rocks. Well, they were really rocks, but they had drilled and put GPS trackers inside several rocks to to act as like canaries in the coal mine for like, oh, our GPS rocks are moving. We better get out there.
Yeah, a problem is that anytime you put out research equipment in somewhere that's a public area, like a national park, people are going to find it, and they're going to vandalize it, and Instagram themselves vandalizing it and think that's awesome. So I don't think I ever saw a picture of their little station, but mine was, it came in a tripod that each foot got spiked into the ground and everything, very secure. And then I was just going to desert camouflage spray paint the whole thing so that you couldn't see it. Even though it's a place nobody's going to walk to, you can't really take any chances like that. So I don't know what they did, but
they had put the rocks GPS. The GPS things were hidden in like a concave area that they drilled out on the bottom of the rocks, so they look like regular rocks. They didn't like have weird collars like those animals from Mutual of Omaha.
I don't know. You would have trouble getting a GPS signal if it was on the underside of a rock.
Well, I just know what I saw in the video.
It would have been funny if some Yahoo had been out there and was like, oh, I'm going to take one of these home, and grabbed a rock and then took it back to like San Diego, and they're like, what? Where's the rock going? Why is it in San Diego?
These rocks are really moving. Wow. Well, is there anything that surprised you about the findings?
Well, I mean, initially back in 2002, when I was there with my two friends, and we saw it happening, like I say, it's pretty far away from where you can legally stand, and we weren't going to go walking out because we knew we'd leave 100-year footprints, and even though we didn't know the rules, we weren't idiots. So trying to stand on where it's dry and trying to look way the hell out there where the ice was moving the rocks, it was pretty far and pretty hard to see. So we pretty much figured it out, but we couldn't have said the details. Nevertheless, it was obvious to us that ice was the critical factor. Ice, a big piece of ice is pushing a rock. Whether that's pushing, whether that's embedding, whether that's whatever details we couldn't see, that was the thing that's, oh shoot, I had never thought of that before. Because wind can't move a rock, but a sheet of ice can move a rock. And that was the kind of the aha moment that I had.
It strikes me that sometimes when people come to visit me out in New Mexico, they're surprised that it gets cold here and freezes here, because they think, well, you're in the desert. Deserts are hot. So, I don't know if that's the case there, but I've had people who are shocked that you get snow here, and so it could be that to some people it didn't occur to them. Sure, it rains very little, but ice. So probably to some people, just the idea of ice in Death Valley was inherently bizarre.
Yeah, I very clearly remember the first time I was in Death Valley when a snowstorm hit. And yeah, I'm way up in the hills somewhere, and much higher than Badwater, which is down below sea level. You're never going to get snow there. But Death Valley goes all the way up to over 11,000 feet. It's a big place. And yeah, we definitely would get snow. When we shot Principles of Curiosity, our 2017 educational film, it had the whole thing on the racetrack in that. When we were there shooting the movie, we had all these places we wanted to go. And again, you have to file a filming permit with the National Park Service, specify exactly everything you're going to do and everywhere you're going to go, and then they send a ranger with you to go make sure you're doing exactly what you said and nothing more. And we were driving through to get to this one place. We were driving through 2-3 feet of snow for 45 minutes before we saw that this road was going to go up on the side of a very steep hill, and it was going to get much deeper and way more dangerous. And I said, that's it, we're not doing this. And we turned around, and we still got a vehicle or two stuck now and then. But yeah, Death Valley is pretty extreme conditions on both ends of the spectrum.
Hence the death in Death Valley.
Hence the death. Yeah, that's no joke. People die there every year. You cannot reiterate that enough.
Now you managed to go there last year and bring everybody home that you took. You want to tell us how that went? And I understand.
Tried to lose a few people, but they couldn't.
Such a bummer. You were hoping to lose a few.
I mean, you take a big group to Death Valley, you gotta show it at its best, right? You gotta lose a few people. No one died, so I'm going to ask for volunteers. Hey, anyone want to say maybe you died a little bit or something? Anyway,
waivers everywhere.
So this is one of our Skeptoid adventures. We here at Skeptoid, we have Skeptoid adventures. We're trying to do a couple of these each year. So we went to Bermuda Triangle, and you both were on that trip.
We were. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And then last year, back in October, we had our first one, which was to Death Valley. We had 50 people. We took them everywhere in Death Valley, including to the racetrack. And that's where we had the problem with driving these vans on this incredibly rough road for hours and hours. And a lot of people weren't too keen on that. So really, they should have just died. We could have left them there, spared them the agony of the road, and then we could have said, hey, we lost people in there.
Ben, I think he's trying to hint that he was trying to get rid of you.
Well, to be fair, I was on. Yeah, I was one of the drivers there, and
yes, Ben was one of our invited experts to be a skeptical person on the trip.
And I think I did. I think I pulled my weight on that one. What I will tell you, and Brian can attest to this, one of my favorite moments. Well, favorite is not probably the word I would use. We're going down this washboard road in like hour like 5 or 6 or something, and literally as we're in this van, the tire falls off my vehicle.
You're talking about the spare tire?
Yeah, technically it was the spare tire, but so you're behind me, and so at some point you radio, you're like, hey, your tire just fell off. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna stop because our tire fell off. Yeah, that was adorable.
Yeah, I was riding in the van right behind you, Ben.
And you see the tire just bouncing off.
I'm in the passenger seat. One of our guys, Jake, is driving. And yeah, we just see there's this tire, boom, ba-doom, ba-boom, bouncing in the road, rolling along at 40 miles an hour.
Oh.
Which, to be clear, was not my fault. That was not my fault.
That was not your fault. No, and then I went to all the vans and I looked at that strap that was holding on the spare tire, and they had all were just like that close from failing. So
I'm starting to think the vehicle rental places have something to do with the large death toll in Death Valley.
You know, those rental vans are in way worse shape than anything we ever did to them.
Well, did you guys while you're out there, did you see anything else besides the sailing stones? Does Death Valley hold a lot of other appeal for skeptical adventure type people?
Oh my God, it is endless. It is endless. You could go there 10 times and spend a week and never see everything that there is to see. You know, we tried to hit most of the major tourist spots because we knew that a lot of the people on the trip, this would probably be their only chance to ever go to Death Valley. So we wanted to take them to Badwater Basin and to the Artist's Palette and all the kind of the big name sort of wow places. And so we did that, and we're doing that again this year. But then beyond that, we're trying to make sure that we go to all the places that are not in the guidebooks, where you can see, you know, fossil specimens that you can't see anywhere else, and where you can see petroglyphs and pictographs that you're not going to see anywhere else. And some of these really hard to get to mining locations where there's really, really cool stuff. Like last year we went to Skidoo, where there's a really big, very well preserved stamp mill, and that was neat to see.
That was super cool. I love that. That was awesome.
Yo, it's super cool.
Pardon my ignorance here, but what is a stamp mill?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, when you straight out of the mine, what comes out is ore, which is like 99% rock that you don't want, and that is very expensive to transport. So, to the degree you can, you want to process it, get rid of the rock, and just boil it down to just the gold and silver before you ship it all the way to San Francisco. So, that's what these stamp mills do. They take the ore gets shoveled into the top and it goes down through the layers, and the stamps are like these big giant 8 foot tall iron bars with a big huge weight at the bottom, and a cam like lifts them up and they drop. So you got a whole bunch of these stamps all just boom, 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 these pistons just pounding the rocks and crushing them down to sand. And then the sand gets washed into these ponds that are full of mercury. And the mercury absorbs all of the gold and silver out of the crushed ore. And then when you drain everything out and you kind of do the panning process, you're left with just a big. I mean, Mark Twain described this process very well in his book, Roughing It. You're left with like a big snowball sized chunk of mercury that's fully infused with gold and silver. And you just kind of boil that off, and the mercury goes away and the metal.
A lot of things. A lot of things are making sense to me here. I mean, I did grow up in Nevada. I am in Nevada. We have a mining history. One of my favorite bars out here is called the Silver Stamp. Have you ever been there?
You asking me? No, I don't live there.
Well, I mean, when you get back to town for your next adventure, I will have to take you to the Silver Stamp. It's a very nice, very old-fashioned Nevada bar.
That's a deal.
There's also, we used to have a mercury processing thing kind of on the edge of town going towards Boulder City. And I've trespassed there before with another adventurer friend of mine. And I don't know if you've heard of the Wheel of Misfortune.
Oh, that I know. So that the Wheel of Misfortune, that was a recurring feature on Animaniacs.
Oh no! If you
No, it was. So Wacko. Never mind.
I believe you. If you look up Wheel of Misfortune on Google, yeah, it was something that it was completely illegal. It was an illegal artistic installation that somebody, I'm forgetting his name, but he got a little bit infamous from this. These giant vats, I mean, you could walk across them. They were bigger than a skateboarding pool. They were just giant. And he went into the basin of one of them and painted like the Wheel of Fortune, except it wasn't dollar amounts. It was some other stuff, and it was all bad. But yeah, these mercury mines, they've been in the news recently because they believe they have remediated the toxins, and they're going to try and build some houses there now. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah,
I don't know that you can remediate mercury. Is that a remediable thing?
Yeah, I mean that's something that even the modern mines have to deal with. You know, the process is a little bit different. They now have this big giant hill, a huge slope, a mile across and a quarter mile high, with supposedly it's got barriers like rubber barriers underneath it, but then the ore in sludge form goes drifting down the front of the slope. And you do the same thing as with mercury and probably other compounds. I don't know the modern processes as well as I know the older ones, but these sites are always contaminated. And when these mines close down, they have to remove millions of cubic meters of material and move it somewhere else. So now it's not contaminated here anymore. I don't know what they do with that. And then they have to restore the site to something resembling its original, normal, natural appearance.
Now, before we let you go, we've got to have you talk about the new upcoming Skeptoid adventure to Death Valley.
Yes, October, I think 21st through the 24th. All the details are at skeptoid.com/events. And we're going to do the same well, we're going to do the same trip in as much as it's going to Death Valley, but we're going to do all different stuff. We're going to hit the main sites again for people who this is their only opportunity to go to Death Valley. And then we're not going to go to the racetrack this time, in part because it was simply way too hard on the people and the vehicles. But we're going to go instead to some other locations that none of them are in the guidebooks and that all of them are better than the places that are in the guidebooks. And we're going to do this by knowing carefully how far to drive and where you can drive these vans, and by just a lot of local personal knowledge, what is the quickest, easiest hiking route. There's still going to be some strenuous hikes. People are going to need to be able to hike a mile or two, and it's going to be very, very well worth it. You know, we call these Skeptoid adventures. They're not Skeptoid luxury trips. These are for people who really want to get out there and do stuff for real and see what they can really see.
Fantastic. And you can still register. As of right now, you can still register at skeptoid.com.
We're filling up quick, and the end of the registration is quick. So, yeah, I can get out there as soon as you can within the next few days.
And I should tell people that at the end of your Skeptoid adventure, we are going to and I just dropped it, but I have more. We have Las Vegas Skepticamp is going to be happening.
Yes.
You can register at lvsos.com, where we're going to have a bunch of speakers. It is a totally free day of skepticism, and it'll be happening October 25th.
And we coordinated this so that when our trip ends, we're taking people and dropping them off in Las Vegas the afternoon of the same day that the first evening activities start for Skepticamp.
Yes, we're working on an evening activity, but the day is going to be a full day on Saturday, so you might want to just rest.
Probably, especially after almost dying in Death Valley. So yeah.
Yes, and you're going to be talking about Area 51.
I'm going to be there. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to be there at the Skepticamp, and I'm going to talk about my adventure to Area 51, which I had the year before. I had this adventure in Racetrack Playa.
And are you able to actually say something, or are you legally? Are you going to be silenced before?
I can tell you're fascinated by that.
Ben, will you be there at the Las Vegas Skepticamp?
I'm not going to be there this time. It sounds delightful. I'm actually I'm actually going to be speaking on another cruise. I'm a guest speaker on a cruise. So it's my year for cruises. So I won't be there, but I wish I could be there. Sounds like fun, and maybe next year.
All right, you're out there trying to get lost in Death Valley or the Bermuda Triangle or something. Good luck. Brian, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. If there's any one thing you would say about the Sailing Stones and your part in them, what stands out the most to you?
The fact that it's for much of its history in a way, it's been a real mystery that genuinely there was no publicly known explanation for it. And it's an actual place that you can go and see for yourself. And if you haven't been exposed to the solution, if you do go there for yourself, you will see what's going on and you will be, what the heck? How is this even possible? So that's really kind of a rare and extraordinary opportunity for people who are excited about real mysteries in the world and excited about finding the real solutions. Here's one that you can go to and you can see what's mysterious about it. It's not like going to a haunted house where you can stay there, but nothing's going to happen for you to videotape. You will be able to take pictures of these sliding stones and you can see everything there for yourself. That's pretty rare and you don't get those opportunities. So it's just been a magical place for me for much of my life, and I just couldn't be more thrilled with having been exposed to the mystery at such a young age and then living with it for a while and then actually solving it and getting to see that solution be confirmed and reconfirmed. That's been really an extraordinarily satisfying process.
Is there anything, it seems like you've hit the conclusion of this chapter for this mystery. Is there anything even remotely similar in the natural world or the world of the mysterious that is on your list to tackle next?
Wow. Yeah, there are definitely a few things. Um, one that comes to mind is I'm going to get the name wrong. Is something like Rupkund Lake in the Indian Himalayas, where there's a lake that's super remote and it's crazy full of human skeletons. And it's like, okay, these skeletons date to such a period when there wouldn't have been anyone here. What happened? And there's speculations like, well, maybe it was some kind of a battlefield, and we just don't know.
You know, they practice sky burials up there. I wonder if the bird.
Oh yes! Oh my God! The Zoroastrian towers of silence. Yes.
I wonder if, much the same where we get like frogs raining down sometimes because flocks of birds just regurgitate. I wonder if the lake filled up that way.
Flocks of damn big birds were regurgitating dead guys and just
Damn big birds. Well, that's fascinating. Is there anything?
barfing them out into the lake.
So is there anything else besides that, or that's the one that popped into your head?
So we are going to be doing more Skeptoid adventures in the Americas in coming years. And we're never looking to do something that's just publicly available in the tour guides that you can just go do. Something you can just go buy from a cruise line or some tour company. And I do have two in mind that I will announce when we have the trips planned. But yeah, one of them that I can't say anything without giving it away. But there's one that I'm super excited about.
No, it's so close.
Well, let me just add that as you know, I've trampled around most of Latin America. I do hablo de español. So if you're looking for a guide to guide you through Bolivia or the Amazon,
Absolutely. I know when we've had you on our trips before, people have really loved the fact that you were there, and they all said, "Ah, it was great. I got to meet not just Brian and the Skeptoid guys, but all these other great skeptical heroes of mine as well." So that's been a really cool aspect of the Skeptoid adventures. And I see you're wearing your shirt today, Ben. That's an excellent shirt.
I legitimately like this shirt. This is. I mean, I'm not just blowing smoke up. This is actually a good quality shirt.
Kathy and I spent like 2 months checking out shirts, ordering them online, going locally and finding them and trying them on, seeing what is a really good shirt, and then getting the embroidery done and getting it all figured out. And so, one thing we are committed to on the Skeptoid Adventures is whatever swag people get is going to be something that is damn good that you're going to keep forever. It's not some trinkety shit that you're going to leave on the cruise ship.
I gotta say, the coffee tumbler that I got on the Bermuda Triangle cruise is my favorite coffee tumbler now.
Oh yeah,
very high quality, insulated. Yeah, very nice.
Those were provided to speakers only on that trip because we didn't have the budget to give them to everyone.
Brian, thanks again. If you want to plug your podcast, now's the time, and we're definitely going to have you on again.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about my podcast, have we? Skeptoid.com. Separating science from pseudoscience since 2006. Damn, I'm old. That's why I have this white beard, because I was youthful and energetic when I started it. Now I'm worn down and indigent and general debility, and it's a horrible scene.
Well, you've recorded like 5,000 episodes for Skeptoid, so that's what happens.
And you see the necessary results of that. Yes.
Well. Go take your vitamins and get your rest, and we'll have you on again.
All right. Thanks, you guys. This is a lot of fun. It's always great to hang out with you both.
Thanks, you too.
All right, cool. Thank you, friends, for listening and for supporting our advertisement-free podcast. To help us stay that way, please visit patreon.com and check out our rewards. And remember, it costs $0 to recommend us to a friend, give us a review, or mention us on social media. If you have comments or suggested topics, join our Squaring the Strange podcast discussion group on Facebook. Squaring the Strange is a production of Two Heads Studio, LLC, copyright 2017 to 2025. Our theme music is provided by Shriekback. Additional music by Memory, Keytard and Feathered, and Pascual Romero. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Squaring the Strange and do not necessarily reflect the views of Two Heads Studio, Center for Inquiry, or any other affiliated organizations or employers.